Just for those of you who may have noticed, because we are not currently broadcasting, the various technical reasons we will record the meeting and it will be available for people to watch later, but there is no simultaneous broadcast. And I think that's going to operate across all council meetings, so it's the new normal. Can you these work now? So good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Planning and Development Board. In case there's anyone who is unaware, we are not expecting any emergencies or evacuations tonight. So if the alarm does sound, the nearest safest exit is likely to be that door there. If for whatever reason we can't use that door to evacuate, please leave the building by the entrance to the Civic Suite, which everyone entered by this evening, and go to Assembly Point G on the car park, which is just outside the window over there, and stay there until tonight's proper officer says it is safe to do otherwise. Please don't just leave because the log that was completed when everyone entered the building will be given to the fire brigade for evacuation purposes. Agenda item number 2 is apologies for members who are away on official council business or otherwise. We have apologies from Councillor Wiley, with Councillor Clues as the substitute, for Councillor H. Phillips, who is substituted for by Councillor Barnett, Councillor Gosling, and the substitute is Councillor O'Fist. I do think it would have been easy for me if H was substituted by O. But there you go. Members, are you all happy to note those substitutions? And those, I normally sort of say welcome to the substitutes, but you're all such regulars. I think you know it as well as everybody else does now. But welcome, and I hope you find the meeting entertaining. Agenda item number 3 is disposable pecuniary and non-pecuniary interest. Does anyone have anything to disclose? Thank you. Agenda item number 4 is the minutes of the meeting held on the 2nd of September. Are you happy that I signed the minutes as a true and accurate record? Thank you. Thank you very much. Agenda item number 5 is the budgetary control report for the period April to August 2024. Mr. Brown, would you like to confess your sins now?
I think they're absolutely they're in black and white, Mr. Chairman, if you look at the report. It's a normal half-yearly report. I just want to draw attention also to paragraph 3.3, which is the variance and the 2 reasons for that. The appeal, the cost of recent appeals and a forthcoming appeal, and also the planning fee income not being as great as we'd anticipated at the time of the year when we were reporting. Apart from that, Mr. Chairman, I'll answer any questions.
Members, any questions? Any comments?
I've got one question, Chair, if I may, which is the last paragraph. I'm a bit concerned about it. It says, if the council consistently loses appeals, it will become a designated authority. I think we've won some and we've lost some. Is there a point where we can fall over the edge and then we become a designated authority by malicious appeals, for want of a better word?
There are performance indicators, Mr. Chairman, and we've never actually been in that position.
Thank you.
And presumably, if we were, we would say whether Planning and Control Board or Planning and Development Board. Since some of the financial papers refer to a board that doesn't exist. So are we all content to note that report? Yes. Can we have a proposer, please, for the recommendation? Thank you. Seconder. Thank you very much. All those in favour? Any against? That's unanimous. Thank you. We now move on to the applications for consideration tonight, the first of which is Priory Farm Road Lane.
Chair, we just point out one little typo, that items G and H in the agenda are reversed in the body of the report.
Which would you like to take to us?
Body of the report.
I think that depends on which version you've got, because we came across that. Some of us have got one version, some of us have got the other one, so
Two sections.
they're not on mine.
Oh, Mr. Brown, what have you done?
I'll have to I'll pass criticism on to my colleagues.
Well, at least the first one is clear. So Priory Farm, Robies Lane, Aldgate, Tamworth, application number 520. Louise Hinsley has indicated that she would like to speak. If you could take the speaker there, please, while Mr. Brown introduces his report. Mr. Brown.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just run through the slides first. Priory Farm is here off Robies Lane. Robies Lane is here on the slide. Members will probably know it better because of the go-karting track here at the back. And also, the land completely surrounding this was the subject of a planning application which members dealt with last time, the allocation known as H5. So the proposal there is for the 9 houses, but this time retaining the 2 existing houses, as you can see here. The karting track buildings are here, which I think members have visited at some time. An illustration of what the proposals might end up looking like, bearing in mind this is an outline application. Right, Mr. Chairman, I'll go back to the layout. As I indicated just a minute ago, Mr. Chairman, this is part of an allocated site, known as H5, which was dealt with last time. This particular site was omitted from that planning application, but it is within the strategic allocation. The Planning Commission has granted a little while ago for a number of houses on this particular plot. This is a variation of that, less units, in fact, less new units, as you can see. The reason it's brought to you, Mr. Chairman, is because of the 106, which is outlined in the report. I have circulated a revised set of conditions which went out last week, Mr. Chairman, and there should be hard copies of that circulated today on members' desks. The changes from the written report are outlined in red, and they mainly reflect the existence or the recognition of a fuel tank on the site and the measures that have to be taken to decontaminate and remove that fuel tank. Otherwise, Mr. Chairman, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Members, as usual, can you all confirm that you have got a copy of the revised conditions and you are content to proceed? Thank you. Welcome to the meeting. In a moment, my colleague will explain the rules on public speaking. But, you're very welcome.
You have 3 minutes from time I say go, and then I'll let you know 1 minute before you finish. Is your microphone on?
Yes.
It is now.
Yeah.
Okay. If you can start now.
Thank you. Good evening, committee. Presented before you this evening is a high-quality development off Robies Lane, which seeks to deliver 9 dwellings comprising a mix of 4 and 5 bedroom properties. This application is presented to you on behalf of the applicant, Pineapple Homes, who specialise in delivering unique, high-quality developments which utilise the best quality materials and are designed sympathetically to the existing surroundings. This philosophy is at the heart of the development presented to you this evening. The applicants have taken the scheme for outline plan permission and adapted it to deliver a prestigious development of 9 modern dwellings. Outline planning permission had previously been granted on the site for a 10-unit scheme, and the site is allocated in the local plan for housing. As such, the principle of development for residential housing is to be supported. No objections have been raised by the Highways Authority or the local lead flood authority. With regards to any concerns in terms of the potential noise generated by the adjacent go-karting track, the plot closest to the track has been designed to include acoustic glazing and ventilation and would have a 3.6 metre tall acoustic fence. Whilst the proposal seeks to deliver a spacious, leafy development with generously sized front and private rear gardens, the applicant agrees to secure off-site provision for open space and BNG, to be delivered through financial contribution. We thank the committee this evening for supporting this residential development for the benefit of the local community and economy to deliver 9 premium bespoke properties. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, do you have any questions to our speaker? Councillor Clues?
Thank you, Chair. 2.1, it's the 2 existing houses at the western end of the site will be retained. Many of the existing trees on the existing driveway will be retained as a feature of the scheme. It says many of the trees. It doesn't say how many trees we lose or how many trees you're going to be put back in to what's it of those trees. And if there's any trees being put back in, it would be nice if we could have native trees.
Yeah, so on the green front, that shows the trees that will be retained. So we have changed where the access road is going through the site, so that has had an influence on the trees that we're losing, but we have made sure that the access route through the site has retained as many trees as possible. And we've obviously got the BNG who will be contributing towards that.
Thank you.
Councillor Ridley?
Hello, good evening. I know the access comes off at Lodies Lane, obviously, and over the other side will be our H5, which will be the one that came forward last time. That's a sort of a hedgerow, and I think it was going to be left for cycling and walking. It wasn't going to be a run through, as far as I can understand it. That's right, Chair. So I take it that mitigation in that if it's going to be a cycling and walking route. Is there any strategy that's been put forward for safety of pedestrians or anything in that stretch that leads into the estate?
So our site has an access has been designed in line with the Hallam Land development adjacent, and we have secured visibility display, so it will be safe.
And will there be a pavement along there or not? Because there isn't currently.
Yes, but
Councillor Hayfield?
Can I move that planning consent be granted subject to the revised conditions, please?
Not yet, Councillor Hayfield.
I'll keep it in mind.
I will endeavour to do so. Does anyone have any other questions for our speaker? No, in which case, thank you very much indeed.
thank you.
Councillor Hayfield?
Can I move that planning consent be granted subject to the revised conditions? And sorry for being a little previous.
Does anyone have any other comments or questions? Any other proposals? In which case,
I'll second that then in that case.
thank you very much. So it's been proposed and seconded that consent is granted. I see those in favour. And any against? Thank you, that's unanimous. We now move to application number 215 for the Atherstone Sewerage Treatment Works, Cardian Road, Atherstone. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you can see, this is a consultation from the County Council asking this council's comments on the proposal. The plan there is you see in your papers. The 2 new buildings are outlined in green there in the centre of the treatment works, and local members will know this is surrounded by industrial developments and large buildings in any event. And then in terms of the actual appearance of the buildings, very utilitarian, as you can see there, Mr. Chairman, but given the siting and where it is and what they're for, the recommendation is that we do not object.
Thank you. Members, we have no speakers on this item. Who would like to? Councillor John.
Thanks, Chair. I think looking at the application and follow the officer's recommendation.
Thank you.
Happy to second that, Chair.
Councillor Fowler? Okay. Any other comments, members? If not, it's been
Just so
proposed.
that the Atherstone members here all seem to be of a mind to second this and shift through the site here. Everything is within the site. It's very low lying, as you say.
Sorry, Chair, we can't hear what.
I'll cut it short then. I'll second it.
And don't forget, members, you are not granting consent. You are agreeing not to object.
Yes.
Okay, we all happy with that? So all those in favour of not objecting? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Application number 28 is next for 7 Grade Bank Furnace End near to Coleshill. Mr Brown?
Right, thank you, Mr Chairman. You can see the reason for bringing this to board. It's because the applicant is an employee of the council, and the proposal is to vary the roofing arrangements for this particular bay window. That's all it is, Mr Chairman.
Thank you very much. Members, any comments? Councillor Hoppy?
Can I propose we move the recommendation to pass to the planning application?
Thank you. Councillor Derrick?
I will second that, but I would also like to comment that standing orders say that this had to come back to us. But it does seem as if an awful lot of officer time and everybody else's time has been taken up by something which for other members of the public would have gone through without that. And I think that we should look at standing orders in future to see whether we can streamline this for certain things, because our officers' time is much more valuable now. As
Absolutely. And I'm sure you'd be able to follow up on that next time we review standing orders.
I will do. I'm in the process of reviewing the constitution, so I will look at that.
Thank you. So members, it's been proposed and seconded for approval. Are there any other comments? So in that case, all those in favour? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Application number 174 and 168 for the Waterworks House, Station Road, Neville Whitaker. We have 2 speakers. Mr. Peter Hartpenny, Hartpenny or Halfpenny? Halfpenny and Ashley Kilgore. Gentlemen, if you take the speaker's chair while Mr. Brown introduces his report.
Right, thank you, Mr Chairman. I'll just run through the slides, which again are repeated in the papers. You can see the site there outlined in red. It is just the bottom of those 2 units. The cottage next door, Waterworks Cottage, is the property in which the objector lives at the present time. You can see here in plan form the proposed rear extension. On the left-hand side, you can see the ground floor plan here, and then the roofing plan, as you can see, is on the other 2 plans. The key line I want to show you on here is the 45-degree line, which the objector refers to, referring to that 45-degree line from the kitchen extension, the kitchen, which is here, and you can see the window marked here, and that 45-degree line does clip the extension, as you can see there. This, in fact, is a wall, and you'll see that in one of the existing wall, and you'll see that in one of the photographs in a moment. If we can get there. Proposals, Mr. Chairman. The proposal, as you can see, this is the rear elevation here, as you can see, the flat roof extension. This, in fact, the bottom right plan shows you that extension, flat roof extension, with the kitchen I referred to a moment ago. This is the wall, which was covered by that particular plan. So you can see the wall, again, is quite tall, and the wall goes on between the 2 gardens, as you can see here. The extension at the rear, as you can see from there. Then in terms of an image, that's the one that the applicant has suggested to you. And you can see the flat roof extension, rear extension, and the wall which is referred to here. The report, Mr. Chairman, outlines the fact that the building was subsequently listed following submission of an earlier application and earlier proposals. And there's been a considerable amount of engagement between our heritage officer and the applicant to achieve a proposal which the heritage officer feels she can actually recommend to you. We still have the objection from the next door neighbour, and that is referred to in the report, and also that particular person would have wanted to speak to you this evening but is unable to do so, and that has circulated a letter which went round to members at the end of last week. And again, there are hard copies of that in front of you at the present time. That letter has also been copied to the applicant, so the applicant is aware of what's in it. It basically repeats what has been the subject of the objection all the way through, the incursion of that 45-degree line. As the report actually indicates, Mr. Chairman, we acknowledge that, but as members will know, this particular property does benefit from permitted development rights, and this in fact would be permitted development if it wasn't for a listed building. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Members, before we go on, can I just check that everyone has received a copy of the additional comments and that you've had the chance to read? Thank you very much. Gentlemen, welcome to the meeting. My colleague will now explain the rules on public speaking.
Good afternoon. You've got 3 minutes between yourselves, so I'm presuming you're sharing 1.5 minutes each.
I'll do most of the speaking. Technical.
Okay, so you'll be doing 3. I'll remind you 1 minute before your time is up, so I'll start when you're ready.
Thank you. So good evening, esteemed council members. I appreciate the opportunity to present the proposed extension to Waterworks House, grade 2 listed building. The purpose of the extension is to add a single-storey rear kitchen designed in a way that both complements the historical significance of the house and meets the practical needs of a modern family home. The design respects the integrity of the Victorian Gothic architecture originally crafted by John Henry Chamberlain and William Martin, and rather than imitating the historical structure, the proposed extension incorporates contemporary elements, including glazed areas and matching brickwork, to create a clear yet harmonious distinction between old and new. This ensures that the original character of the house remains intact, while allowing the property to evolve in a manner that is practical for its current use. Through extensive consultations with the local planning authorities and conservation officers, we have carefully adjusted the size, scale, and materials of the extension to ensure minimal impact on the building's heritage value. The changes are designed to be reversible, protecting the historical fabric of the property. And in addition, we have taken into account the rules of a typical permitted development extension on the distance and height from the existing dwelling. Overall, the proposed balances heritage conservation with the need for modern functionality, enhancing the architectural value of the site and preserving its significance for future generations. We respectfully request your approval for this extension, which will maintain the house's historical integrity while improving its usability for our needs. Thank you.
Members, do you have any questions for our speakers? No? Then, gentlemen, thank you both very much. Members, any comments or questions? Councillor.
Chair, I've got one question. I'm looking at the original drawing with the dotted line from the 45 degrees. I mean, it's got permitted development rights, but isn't that 45 degrees sacrosanct? I mean, shouldn't that be applied? I think we've applied it everywhere on anything else I've sat over the last 12 years on committees. So, taking the letter that's come from the neighbour, there is an element of removing light and affecting the amenity of the house next door.
I'll get confirmation from our expert. My understanding is it's more, well, it's not quite guidance, it's stronger than guidance, but it's not sacrosanct.
We have varied it before.
Yes, we are.
You're correct, Mr. Chairman. It's pure guidance. It's not a statutory requirement, and we do, and there are a number of circumstances where we have approved developments which in fact impedes on the 45-degree line throughout the borough, greenbelt or not. In this particular case, the recommendation is supported by this daylighting material that came in with the application, and that's reported to you in the appendices on the application. On the report you have in front of you. If there had been a real issue with sunlighting and daylighting, then the matter would be very different.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Any other questions, members? Just one from me, Mr. Brown. The building is now grade 2 listed. When did that take effect?
It was sometime, I think, if I'm looking at the applicant or the owner, but I think it's much earlier this year, about 6 months ago, 8 months ago. They're nodding, Mr. Chairman.
my concern here, clearly, Mr. Status is important, but I do feel the system has not been as helpful as it could have been to the applicant, or indeed to the objector, given that it was partway through the submission of an application. One of the legal situations, perhaps I'll address this more to you, where we have an application and then the planning context of the building changes, how does that apply? Because I think these applications have been with us for some time.
It is the listed status that you take into account, because at the time you're considering it, it is the listed.
So even though the listing occurred after the submission?
It is, yes. The building is listed, yes.
Thank you. Members, can I, any other questions or a proposal would be good? Councillor Hobley?
I think it's just a comment before I do the proposal. I think it looks really nice, and I really agree with what you've said about bringing the old and new together. It's really clever and really good design, so I'm happy to propose to move the granting of this application.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Parsons?
Yes, I mean, I think the fact that there have been no objections from our conservation officer and that the work has been undertaken with very real reference to her. Yeah, I agree with the proposal.
Thank you. So members, it's been proposed and seconded that consent be granted. Can I see those in favour? Those against? Thank you very much. Planning consent is granted. We now move to application number 451 for an extension to the existing shooting club house at Blackreeves Farm, Blackreeves Lane, Leon Marston. One of the local members has indicated he would like to speak on this issue, so if you don't mind, we'll go to Mr. Brown's introduction first and then to you. So, Mr. Brown.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members will be familiar with this site when we dealt with the planning application for the Buns, which I'll refer to in a moment. But you can see the site there, the aerial photograph. Blackreeves Lane, which is referred to in the report, runs along here. The shooting club in here, back is in here. This is quite an out-of-date photograph. And the golf course and Lee Marston Hotel down here. Haunch Lane and Coat Road are down here. This is that's in plan form. As you can see, the Blackreeves Lane is down here on the right-hand side, and the existing shooting area is here. The existing clubhouse is here, and this small pond is behind the clubhouse between it and the lane. That's the existing clubhouse, and members have been on the site 2 or 3 times in connection with various proposals at the shooting club. They will have seen that building and also have been inside that building as part of those site visits. The proposal, as you can see, is to extend the clubhouse, as you can see here, and the figures in terms of footprint and volume are actually in the report for you. The shooting areas, as you can see, as members saw on the site, are around here, and on the outskirts of this large copse, which members again saw on site when they've been there. In terms of elevations, this is what is being proposed. The report refers to the 3 pitches, as you can see there, in timber construction. That's a repeat of what we've had before. But then in terms of the overall layout, this in fact is the buns which the council has resolved it's minded to grant planning permission for, and that was a couple of committees ago in respect to noise abatement issues on the site. The report, Mr. Chair, makes it absolutely clear that this particular proposal is inappropriate development in the Greenbelt. It's for a larger extension that was dismissed at appeal a few years ago, and the inspector on that particular occasion found it to be inappropriate. There has been, of course, a material change in circumstance since that appeal, and that's what's being emphasised in the report to you, in the sense that the bund, which you can see there, changes materially the impact on the openness of the Greenbelt. Previously, members will be aware that the land around here was open, agricultural land. This bund would be 10 metres high, as members are aware, and that was resolved to be granted planning permission a couple of meetings ago, subject to a 106 agreement. That's a material change in circumstances which has affected the recommendation to you tonight, Mr. Chairman. However, that recommendation is subject to conditions and also to a 106 agreement, such that no work starts on the actual extension to the clubhouse until such time as that bund arrangement is in and implemented. Therefore, giving credence to the argument in which way the weight from the final planning balance lies. I'll finish there, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Councillor Watson, would you like to speak now or later?
No, I'll be fine. Thank you, Chair. That's okay. Thank you for allowing me to speak. As the local member and Mr. Brown has alluded to, the Bund was granted consent because of the noise issue that Lee Marston and Nether Whittaker had from the shooting club. As Mr. Brown has said, the aerial photo is significantly out of date. There are significantly more shooting bays, etc., than the aerial photo shows. So the concern from residents is still around noise, because whilst the Bund has been consented, it hasn't been constructed as yet. So the legal situation is that the site owner needs to resolve the issue of noise first. The Bund was one of those things. Now, we don't know whether that's going to work or not. So what I've been asked this board to do is obviously defer this decision until we know better what the noise is going to be like once the Bunds are constructed. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any comments, questions, proposed? Councillor Fowler?
Yes, Chair, hearing from what Councillor Watt has said, yes, I too am concerned about the sound deflection in there, and I would support exactly what has been said, deferred until we actually have some sort of proof that it will not deflect to elsewhere. I know this is mainly because the people who live in the close perimeter, but it could go much further. I, at the moment, am not sure it will do exactly what they say on the tin.
Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree with what's been said by both speakers. The other point I'd like to make is, if this application were to be granted, is there an implication that the shooting will be intensified, that there'll be more people shooting or more stands to shoot on, anyway, more bands? And if we are to defer until we see the impact of that fund, I think we should also investigate more what the implications are, in fact, in terms of increasing the potential noise. Because obviously we'll be looking at the bund for the way that the shooting is now and seeing whether that's made things better. But if we were to grant this and the noise got more, then, we've still got an issue. So all I'm saying is, I do support that, wait and see what the impact of the bund is. But I think at the same time, we should just investigate what's intended in terms of extending the actual shooting on the site.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, anything to add?
Yes, several things, Mr. Chairman. Members have got to deal with the planning application as an extension. The bund is a material consideration, and it's already been resolved to grant planning permission for the bund. There was quite a very lengthy debate between members and our environmental health officers on the noise issues when we looked at the bund. And members are satisfied, because of that resolution, that the noise elements here will be reduced materially as a result of that bund. Mr. Chairman, I'm strongly advising that you should not confuse the two issues. This is an application to extend the clubhouse. If the shooting area is to be increased, that will be the subject of a separate planning application. That's a new development, and that in itself will require a new planning application, which will be reported to the board. The existing the application is to provide better facilities, which, as the report outlines, for existing shooting club members, and you can see that from the report. I would advise against deferral, Mr. Chairman. That does open the possibility of a challenge. In other words, the board is considering matters outside the scope of this particular planning application. I'm sorry to say that, Mr. Chairman, but I must make that point absolutely plain.
We haven't done a recommendation yet, Mr. Bell. Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Far be it from me to disagree with Mr. Brown, but my recollection of when we agreed to that bund was the applicant put that forward as a possible means of reducing the noise. We thought there was a great likelihood it might, and therefore, even though it's in the green belt, we agreed for it to be done. But there was no proof, although there were some opinions, there's been no proof that it will not affect people outside the immediate area when that bund's put in. So it isn't true to say that we agreed it would mitigate the noise. We said there is a good chance it might, and that's very different. And I think I think we need to understand they haven't constructed the bund yet, so we don't know what the impact is.
Councillor Ridley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's the completion of the bund and also acoustic fences, but we've got to think about this is the green belt and it's about openness, and the bund was supposed to then, I suppose, because you can't see the building, then allow for an extension. But if we have no bunds yet, then there still is an openness of the green belt. So it's almost like the chicken and the egg to a certain extent. I would be very loath to, until bunds are in and we know exactly what the noise assessment will be. Effectively, I know what Mr. Brown was saying about environmental officers giving their opinions on it, but surely there's got to be bunds or something in place first before there's anything else in relation to my opinion.
Any legal comment?
We're in the process of, obviously it's confidential and therefore I can't speak about it in this meeting, but I am in the process of dealing with funds at the moment. That is a separate issue that's being dealt with. And that is a continuous matter that I'm dealing with, so I can't say in an open meeting apologies. But we are dealing with that issue separately.
Mr. Brown, a couple of questions. Oh, sorry, Councillor Bates.
Sorry, yeah, I think I'd just like to echo what's just been said. I think looking at the application as it is now, it is still open space and it's still greenbelt. So not looking at the what ifs and what the whens, but looking at the application as it is now, I just echo what's been said in regards to being still open space and it's still greenbelt. So I would also agree with what's been said about deferring.
Thank you. Councillor Parsons.
Thank you, Chair. Have I got this right? As I understand it, the extension cannot be built until the bund is in place. Is that correct? Yeah. Also, the activities at the club are legally permissible. It is a legally permissible shooting club. So I feel the bund is a material factor. The extension can't take place until the bund is complete. And having been around there and the like, I honestly feel that the bund is essential, and I do feel facilities need to be rationalised at that place, because at the moment it spreads and it's not very pleasant, and I think it can be a lot better. So I would be in favour of the recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Derrick.
I'd really like to echo that. One of the conditions here is that the clubhouse cannot be extended until the bund is in place, because otherwise it will affect the openness of the countryside there. But once the bund is there, that openness has already gone. And that is the question that we are looking at here, not how effective it is. That is a separate question in this case, because we've already resolved that we're going to try to mitigate against the noise with that bund. agree with Councillor Parsons that I think that we should support this.
Sorry, I'm not sure on the rules. Yes, go on, Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. Just to come back on that, I think a really important consideration for this site, I do take on board what Mr. Brown has said, is that the Bund is a mitigation. The actual overarching decision is that the shooting club must resolve the noise issue. The Bund is a suggestion as to what may feed into that. So actually, if the Bunds don't work, then he's going to have to do something else. Because the overarching issue, as I understand it, is that he must resolve the noise issue. And the Bund is a proposal that may or may not work. We don't know yet. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
If I may, that isn't the question that we're looking at here. That is a separate question. What we're looking at here is whether this development will affect the openness of the green belt, the open character of the countryside. At the moment, yes, it would. But once that bund is in place, that is no longer a consideration. The noise is still a consideration, but not the openness of the countryside. And I think that is where we are in danger of going against planning policy if we don't support this. And I agree with you about completely that I think that in planning terms, we've got to look at this from a separate question, not the one of the noise, unfortunately.
Councillor Humphries?
Thank you, Chair.
Clues.
I answered anyway.
I will never interrupt her.
No. On paper, I haven't got that much bigger a problem. But as a lot of people have said, I would feel more comfortable with this if we knew that the bund was already there. And I know it's two separate things, as Mr. Brown said and Mr. Spears said, but that's just my feeling that,
Thank you.
Again, I would agree with that.
Councillor Holden?
Thank you, Chair. It's just a point of clarity or just to try and understand it. If we're looking at the planning application as it is, it's there without the bunds in. So we can't take that planning application as it is if they're not in. Is that not right? Because we don't know the impact. We've got permission for it, but we don't know the impact. So I think it's a bit of a strange one, really, to be honest. Sorry, Chair. That's it.
Have you changed your mind now, Councillor?
I was trying to speak, but
Councillor Humphries?
I think we're going to have to, if we're going to look at it like that, then we've only got refusal on green belt grounds. And we know what this site's been like over the years. We talk about it is harm, but there are parts of this site. Look at both the fishing pools and the clay pigeon shoot are lawful use through the passage of time. They were put there illegally originally. A number of steel storage containers and structures still exist on the site, albeit without planning permission. They were put there illegally. This building is supposed to, if it is created, is to create removing those storage. There's nothing in here that I've been able to discern. That actually all the debris, if you like, for different description, says that they're going to have to be removed. So if we have to look at that in its own right and ignore the bunds and ignore everything, I'm going to propose that refuse it based on green belt reasons.
Thank you. Councillor Parsons?
Thank you. I'd come back to the original points I made. This club has a legal use. For whatever reason, it is a legal use. We can't stop the club operating. It has the right to operate. We've given permission for the bund, and the extension to the clubhouse cannot occur under the conditions until the bund is actually built. And these are the facts of the matter. And I can't honestly see any reason for going back on that previous decision. I honestly believe we do have to approve this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Humphries?
If I could speak again, I think we can go back on it, because if the bund doesn't do, it was actually what Councillor Watkins said, if the bund doesn't do what it was supposed to do, then we're going to end up with a big extension in the middle of the green belt and a huge bund, none of which operates properly. And I cannot see, regardless of what's said, that it's for the existing members. You don't put a massive big facility in for the existing members on top of that's been working for several years and invest in that without expecting the growth in the business and the turnover of that business. And as far as I can see, this is still an infringement on the openness of the Greenbelt. And I would propose, I don't know if I'll get a seconder, that we either vote against this or we propose that we refuse permission. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, I'd appreciate some guidance, I think, on this. Do you have a recollection or the paperwork in front of you as to what the resolution was in respect to the funds?
I was going to come back to that, Mr. Chairman. A couple of meetings ago, the Plan Commission, the Planning Board resolved to grant the Planning Commission for the bund, subject to a 106 agreement. That was to do with the actual construction of the bund. There is nothing in that particular debate or in the resolution to say that we would review that particular resolution in the light of monitoring of noise. There's nothing in the recommendation, nothing in the resolution. The board resolved to grant Planning Commission, full stop, subject to the 106. If there are noise issues, then the noise abatement notice, which members are aware of on the site, will come into force. And if that noise abatement notice is not adhered to, then clearly we're in the courts, or a fresh noise abatement notice to be issued. To make absolutely clear, the resolution to grant planning permission for the bund was not conditional. It was only conditional upon the 106, which dealt with the construction of the bund and the timing of that bund. To come back to Councillor Humphrey's point, I would advise not to recommend refusal on the grounds, because it's a matter of fact that that bund is a material consideration which you have to consider tonight in response to this particular planning application to extend the clubhouse. You cannot ignore it. It's a material consideration of considerable weight, because it does impact on the openness of the green belt and therefore on the final planning plans of this particular proposed approach, Mr. Chairman.
Is the completion of the 106 agreement what you alluded to earlier?
In process.
Councillor Bates?
So it's just a clarity thing, really. I get the point about material, etc., but it's not there yet. So that's the bit that I'm struggling with. So when we look at the application that we've currently got, that's not there yet to take that into consideration. So at this moment in time, it is still open space and it's still on green belt because it hasn't happened yet. So I don't know whether the application just feels a bit premature.
Okay, if we can help a bit with that to avoid Councillor Parsons saying it again. I think the case here is that if approved, this building couldn't be built until the bund was in place. The bund can't be in place until the 106 agreement has been done. So there is a consequential train of events which has to go. The first thing, as I understand it, is the 106 agreement. The second thing is the construction of bunds. The third thing would then be this application being implemented. Which I would have to say, of necessity in my head says that it is several months away before it could actually be implemented, because the 106 agreement has to be done, the bunds have to be done, and then so I'm not entirely sure of the need for urgency, given that there are at least two stages which has to happen before this could effectively be implemented. Mr. Brown, have you had any conversations? I'm thinking of I think it was Councillor Bell's question over use of the site. Have you had any conversations with the applicant over his business plans for development of the site?
Not as such, Mr. Chairman, because his argument at the moment is that this particular facility improves the accommodation for its existing club members. And as the report outlines, the existing, as members will have seen on the site visit, the existing building is very small, it's cramped, it lacks facilities, doesn't conform with the Equalities Act, there's no disabled toilets. At the moment, disabled have to use a container. There are no briefing rooms, which is a legislative requirement, and there are also storage issues, and members will have heard from the applicant about security issues on the site. We have been through the proposal, and as you can see from the report, we consider that the particular accommodation here which is being proposed is appropriate for the club. The wording, as I stress in the report, is not that those facilities should be essential. The wording is they should be appropriate. And that's the line that we've taken in the report, Mr. Chairman, as you can see. There's also a capacity level on here in terms of the shooting safety, health and safety issues about shooting, which in fact, so therefore the numbers of shooters, if I can put it that way on the site, is governed by other legislation. And also noise abatement notices under the Environmental Protection will come in, under the Environmental Protection Act will come in respect of noise. And in terms of licensing, then there's the control the council has on licensing. So there are other areas, other legislation which can control the amount of use on this particular site. I think there's a condition attached on this to do with actually the accommodation in the building, be as that's shown on the plan, and it should not be open to other uses, in other words, corporate use or outside the ownership, outside the membership of the particular club. If that's not there, Mr. Chairman, then I would certainly recommend that's included.
But nevertheless, Mr. Brown, this application is, accepting all of what you said, substantially larger than an application which we refused and which was upheld on appeal.
I totally agree, Mr. Chairman, and that's the reason why it is inappropriate development in the Greenbelt. But, as I've said before, there is a change in circumstance. It is a matter of fact that the board has resolved to grant plan permission for the bund. Whether it's there or not, that is a resolution which you have to give weight to. And therefore we have done that. And therefore, in the light of that fund, in the light of that circumstance, that changed circumstance, we consider that the impact on the openness of the Greenbelt is materially reduced. And that's the reason why the recommendation is different to what you might expect if the bund had not been there.
So, paraphrasing that, this application is inappropriate, but it's acceptable because of another inappropriate development in the Greenbelt.
The bund, Mr. Chairman, is not inappropriate. The bund, it was inappropriate development, Mr. Chairman. It's an engineering operation, but the board has resolved to grant plan permission. And the benefits of the bund were the noise attenuation measures, and that outweighed the harm to the Greenbelt and landscape harm by the large bund.
Just clarity from Mr. Brown. So I know the planning board's already passed the bund, and that's why it's not in the condition for today. Where if the planning board hadn't passed the bund and this had come in, it would have been in condition then on this application to put the bund in.
It's a bit stronger than that, Councillor Cleves, if I can, Mr. Chairman, because the one that we're recommending a 106 agreement there, which has been referred to by the chairman. In other words, the bund has to be implemented before this extension can go ahead.
Thank you.
Chair, I'm going to mention the fact about corporate entertainment. He's tied into a deal with Lee Marston Hotel. And I know for a fact that people have gone there. Is that a corporate entertainment if you go for the weekend with your business and 20 if you go shooting? That's corporate entertainment. And we were told the last time we were talking about the bund that he was, go back to the Commonwealth Games, he was campaigning vigorously to get the shooting, which didn't get put into the games in the Commonwealth Games, but he was going to hope to get the shooting on that site for the Commonwealth Games. And that would have, as far as I can see, that's corporate as well. So I think whatever comes up, he will always have a go for it. Thank you very much.
Is there any other legal guidance before I try and sum up? So, members, my view is this is a fairly complicated argument. You will see from the application that this is an application which is already long in the tooth. It was submitted to us in 2019. But we've equally heard that the application is not capable of being constructed because they first have to develop a Section 106 agreement and then construct the bunds. And I accept one is not dependent upon the other in terms of the effectiveness, but there is a time yet before the applicant could effectively implement the decision that you're being asked to grant. I am slightly concerned, I have to say myself, over the business plan and where this may or may not go. And I think that is not an unreasonable question. I think you should absolutely pay credence to Mr. Brown's guidance that you cannot mix the two applications together. They are separate events. And I think it is entirely reasonable that it's possible to grant consent because it is dependent upon the conclusion of the bund. But I think it is equally acceptable is to say that you need more information over some of the issues that are being discussed tonight, like the business plans and how this will work and how it will all hang together. Because in the debate, I can understand reasonable questions. I am inevitably turned to the disadvantage that the applicant may suffer because of a further delay if there were to be a deferment. But given the guidance we've had that you couldn't implement it tomorrow in any event, I'm not sure there is any effective disadvantage.
Yes.
So inevitably, members, the choice is yours. You can grant consent tonight. You could look to refuse, but I need both, I need the circumstances and the reasons for refusal, or you could look to defer for further information. And I'm in your hands. I think I've had a proposal, Councillor Parsons, to grant consent, seconded by Councillor Dervix. I think Councillor Fowler, well, she didn't say it, I think you implied that you wanted to move
deferment. Yes, Chairman, I was again looking at 9.56 where it's talked about the noise bund is completed to the satisfaction of the planning authority, and I'm wondering, well, how do we know that it's to the completion and the satisfaction of the planning authority? And if it isn't, as we've talked about the noise attenuation, and if that is actually expanded further, even with the bunding in there, and I take it, looking at Mr. Brown, that we have the legal authority to actually enforce onto the gentleman to ensure that he doesn't sort of say, as we had speculation and alleged that some people just say, well, they've said that, we ignore it. I'm not saying this person would be ignoring it. We have to have that measure that we have the power to make sure and ensure that any circumstances to actually improve the sound attenuation would be carried out through this authority.
I'm pretty sure that's a yes.
Yes.
Yes, that's a yes. So, Councillor
John. Thank you, Chair. I'm taking very much in the guidance of Mr. Brown, and looking at it simplistically, if they did that development today, yes, it would affect the openness of the green belt because you would see it. But if you look then that the bund is going to come in first, it reverses that, it turns it on its head. Because if you do the development, you're inside the bund, which wouldn't be visible. And just to put a little bit of size to it, the height of the bund is probably twice as high as this room. It's not an insignificant bund. So I think I'm leaning towards Mr. Brown's proposal that the openness of the green belt is not irrelevant, but it's superseded by the introduction of the bund.
Thank you. Councillor Phillips.
Yes, it's through you, Chair. It's for Mr. Brown. What is the definition of to our satisfaction? Because as you already stated, it's not to do noise abatement, is it? Just the construction, wouldn't it? To our satisfaction, wouldn't it?
Sorry, so could you use the microphone so I can hear?
Coming on Councillor Farrell's point, he wanted to defer because the construction would be to our satisfaction, but construction doesn't mean to our satisfaction of noise abatement, does it? It just means constructed to our satisfaction.
It means construction of the actual bund, yes. And what would happen in normal circumstances is that once the bund had been completed, officers will be invited to go and have a look at it to make sure it complies with the approved plans.
So, sorry, I did see you first, Councillor Parsons, about half an hour ago. Sorry. Councillor Parsons.
I'll be very quick, Chair, thank you. I think it's a little unfortunate to suggest that our planning department isn't capable of assessing whether or not this bund is satisfactorily completed. I think our planning department is eminently capable of deciding whether or not the bund is adequately completed. I think this argument is wandering off the point to a great extent. I really do. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Humphries.
I was going to comment that I don't think Mr Brown's answer answered Councillor Phillips. You can make sure the bund's built correctly, but ultimately the bund's there for one reason, that's to mitigate the sound. And if it doesn't operate and do what it says on the tin, then the bund's useless. It's just a big pile. So we need to make sure that it's adequate for how it's built, that it's safe, etc., and that it's planted as it was all agreed, etc., and it does what it says on the tin. Otherwise, the bund's not going to do the job it was put there for. Thank you.
Okay.
With respect, it's a different question.
Okay, if we can all get back speaking to the chair, that might mean you get over without losing your temper. I think the important thing to remember is the two applications are not dependent upon each other. The board has granted consent to build the bund, subject to 106. As Mr Brown indicated, there was nothing in that recommendation that said it had to be effective, it had to be constructed. And I think it's important that we can't go back and rewrite the previous consent to say what you might have wished it to say. I do think it's entirely reasonable to either grant consent or to defer for more information of whatever nature that is. And if you want to come up with a reason for refusal, then we can look at that one too. But at the minute, I have a proposal for consent to be granted, which has been seconded, and Councillor Fowler proposed that we defer for further information. Is there a seconder for Councillor Fowler? Councillor Rigg. Now, I don't really mind which one we take first, but as I heard Councillor Parsons first, I think to an extent, I don't know. Is there a guidance over which we take first? One doesn't cancel the other out.
No.
So which should we do first? Hate having to make a decision. We'll take granting first, and so those who wish to vote for the application to be granted consent should indicate. Those who wish the application be deferred, I think you have to vote against this and consider it later. It doesn't mean say you're voting against the application. I think you just want to defer it and have more information. So all those who are in favour of the consent being granted, please show. Seven. Those against. Eight. So consent is not granted. All those in favour of deferral. Eight. Those against deferral. Please don't let it be 8. 6. So even my math says that's a straightforward decision. So the item is deferred. It will come back to the next meeting. We now move to application number 189, Sunnyview, Eagle Lane, North Whittaker. Councillor Thompson, you've indicated you'd like to speak. If you'd like to take the speaker's chair while Mr Brown introduces his reports. Mr Brown.
All right, thank you, Mr Chairman. We'll just catch up. I don't have the one plan, I believe. The location plan, Dingle Lane outlined in red there. Yes. That's right, that's that one. As you'll see from the report, this was deferred. This was a result of a deferral from last time. The board last time agreed to grant planning permission for this particular property, subject to the board having a look at conditions and also a unilateral undertaking, which was to be submitted by the applicant. That is now with you tonight, and therefore the remit of this board tonight is solely to look at the conditions and the UU. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mark. Welcome to the meeting. So we've kept you waiting a while, but you're very welcome. Just to shake things up a little bit, my colleague will now explain the rules of public speaking.
Good afternoon. You have total 3 minutes in total to speak. When you have 1 minute outstanding, I will remind you. I'll stop when you start speaking.
Thank you. Chair, Board, as Chair of Nether Whittaker Parish Council, I am here to speak in support of Mr. Brown's recent decision for refusal of this planning application on the 2nd of September. This application does not meet the planning criteria for approval, as was so rightly put, and we agree. The planning officer report shows the planning reasons for refusal in great detail. We are aware that the board can vote in direction contrary, but the reasons and arguments must be based solely on planning matters. We do not believe this was the case at the last board meeting. The video recording of the evening adds weight to this. Newly introduced here is the unilateral undertaking. The core strand of the UU is one of self-build. The applicant has declared to planning under the title Self-Build Register 2023 that in 3A is this a self-build, contractor build, one-off home, whereby an individual, Mr. Bignell, purchases a plot of land and builds a house to live in. They may do some or all of the build themselves or employ a builder, architect, and in some cases a project manager to oversee the build. The box is ticked yes. In 3B, is it a kit? The box is not ticked. And in 4, when asked, will this self-custom built property be your sole residence? If so, tick the box to confirm that this property would become your main residence for at least 3 years after completion. The box is not ticked. It is for a family member, is written. Furthermore, this is not a self-built plot. The Self-Build and Custom House Building Act of 2015 provides a legal definition of self-build stroke custom build. It requires that the relevant authorities must be satisfied that the owner will have primary input into its final design and layout. This building is to be bought from catalogue, off plan. The owner is expected to be the one who lives in it. This is not the case. The dwelling is for a relative. On these 2 items alone, the legal definition has not been met. This is not a self-build. There are also 2 refused appeals of nearby applications which add significant weight to refusal. These are also lodged with planning. In summary, no special circumstances at all are being put forward by the applicant to justify this development in, not just Greenbelt, but washed over Greenbelt. It is not permitted. Considering the weight of planning concerns highlighted against this application, we respectfully request that this application is refused. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions for our speaker? No questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Members, in the light of our speaker's comments, I think I'd like some guidance from our lawyer.
This application is to consider the unilateral agreement and the conditions. It's not about the previous decision. So you've got to take into account the application before you. You can't revisit the previous application that you have already granted. Chair.
Thank you. Could I press you a little bit more? I think what the speaker was saying to us was that the unilateral undertaking in front of us doesn't meet the appropriate tests. Is that the case or not?
I haven't fully looked at the unilateral agreement, considered it properly at the moment, so at the moment, I couldn't say.
And there was a question also of the length of time that the applicant or the applicant's family member should reside in the building when it's constructed. Is that something you can give an opinion on, or do you need more time?
I would need more time.
Members, you heard just as well as I did what our lawyer told us. I therefore would propose consideration of this item is deferred until we have an answer as to whether or not the unilateral undertaking as submitted meets the appropriate tests or does not. So were you voting in favour?
Seconding it.
Thank you very much. So can I see all those in favour of deferment? And any against? Thank you very much. My apologies, Councillor Watson. I also agreed that you could speak on this item. Given that we've just made a decision, would you still like to speak, or do you want to come back next time?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
And you don't want to come back next time either, aren't you?
Never again.
Thank you very much. And I am sorry. So, members, we now move on to the debate. The debate of the evening. Do you wish to take Cowleys or do you wish to take the golf course? My guidance to you is that we have a speaker that wishes to speak to you on the golf course. So if you wish to be pleasant.
One that's on the iPad, Chair, so we ain't going back.
Well, we do have a speaker, so I think in all fairness we should take the one with the speaker first.
What are they speaking?
Mr. Bassett would be kind to you. Mr. Bassett, if you'd like to take the chair while Mr. Brown introduces his report. Mr. Brown.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are no plans or slides associated with this particular report because, as you can see, it's to deal with the heads of terms of the Section 106 agreement. At the last board meeting, members resolved to grant outline planning permission for this particular development on the allocated site off Roby's Lane, subject to the heads of terms of Section 106. Those heads of terms have now been submitted to you, and they're attached as an appendix to the report. And the report itself goes through the main elements of that, but particularly draws attention to the education issues, the highway matters, and affordable housing. And you can see there the response from the county council's representatives or officers in respect of education provision and in respect of highway matters. I've given you my particular views on that, and they're outlined in the report. If members are to include the contributions which are set out, particularly in paragraph 2.6 on education, then that has a consequence on the overall value of the 106, which is outlined in the report. In other words, it will affect the viability of the development. And the applicant has indicated that in that particular case, if all the other contributions are accepted, then the percentage of affordable housing on site would fall from 30% down to around 20%. Members will be aware from the previous report and also from this report that to be policy compliant, the on-site provision should be 40%. They've already gone down from 40 to 30, and they're saying that if the additional contributions are added in, that will go down to roughly around 20%. It's up to members, Mr. Chairman, to come to a view on that as to where they consider the priorities to be. I've outlined in there that I think the priority ought to lie with affordable housing provision, particularly as we're providing that at the present time, as can be seen from the end of the report in para 2.26. As a consequence of that, Mr. Chairman, if members run with that, then obviously we're looking at a 30% provision, and the heads of terms deal with affordable housing provision in its first section, the first array of clauses that are there. Just need to stress a couple of things. First of all, that the first line of that appendix is 30% of the total number of on-site dwellings across the development should be provided for affordable housing. So it's 30% overall. So if one particular phase doesn't meet 30%, it'll have to catch up, if you see what I mean, on the other phases. So it's 30% overall. And the second issue then is that refers to some gifted units, potentially in the first phase. That is not doesn't mean that there'll be other affordable housing provision within that phase. So therefore, there's some. I think that hopefully, Mr. Chairman, the Speaker may be able to help you on some of the inferences of that. But those are the only comments I've got to make. The recommendation is that we agree the heads of terms as set out.
And just for the avoidance of doubt, Mr. Brown, the recommendation is for the lower sum as regards education.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman, yes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bassett, welcome back to the Council House. I'm sure you need a reminder on the rules for public engagement, so my colleague will now talk you through them.
Good afternoon. You have 3 minutes to speak. I will remind you at 2 minutes, letting you know that you only got 1 minute remaining. I'll start when you start speaking.
Thank you. Good evening. As you know, I'm Mark Bassett from Frees. I'm the agent on behalf of Home Land Management. Following the resolution to grant planning permission last month, which was subject to approval of the heads of terms for the Section 106 agreement, members now have the final information to approve the heads of terms. The information is set out concisely within the committee report, and so I will be brief and just wish to make the following points. Infrastructure and provision of affordable housing that will be delivered by this scheme is substantial. Although commensurate with the scale of the development proposal, it will secure unprecedented levels of affordable housing and developer contributions for the scheme. The provision of 30% affordable housing has been reached following a comprehensive viability exercise with the district value. That figure was reached based on the original scheme. Since then, the number of dwellings has decreased and the contributions increased, but the applicant has maintained their offer of 30% affordable housing. The adjacent development at the former golf course site in neighbouring Tamworth, directly next door, provides 20% affordable housing. The affordable housing offer includes the provision of gifted units within the first phase and flexibility for this to be provided in subsequent phases. Although there has been some reduction in contribution from the request made by Warwickshire County Council on Education, this must be seen in the context of the size of the contributions that was requested by the Education Authority. Full primary and secondary contributions are proposed, totaling almost 19 million. As set out in the committee report, to meet the other elements of the Education Authority's request would result in a significant reduction in affordable housing. We trust that members agree that this scheme delivers the required infrastructure and will be critical to the provision of affordable housing in the borough. We ask members to approve the heads of terms so that Section 106 can be finalised, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that members may have.
Members, do you have any questions for our speaker? Just one from me, because my mental arithmetic is not that great and it's 10 to 8 and I'm getting tired. Within the report, where it sets out various sums, what is the total amount of the 106 contribution?
Don't like the actual precise figure, I can't calculate it somewhere, but it's around about 23 million.
That's a precise enough answer. Any other questions, ma'am? Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Members, I really do not wish to delay this application's progress further. We have had it, as you can see on the first page of the report, since 2018. So I think it is about time to make a decision. The sole remaining issue is the contents of the 106 agreement. And I am aware that the applicant would like a speedy decision. And there are a couple of things in there that I think we do need a little further reflection on. So, not wishing to go too far from Mr. Brown's recommendation that we agree the heads of terms set out in Appendix A, I'd like to propose a slightly varied resolution that delegated authority is given to the Chief Executive in consultation with the Chairman of the Board, Councillor Phillips as the lead spokesman for the opposition, and Councillor Ridley as the lead and follow spokesman for the secondary opposition group, to finalise the terms of the 106 agreement. That is permissible within our agreements and standing orders. and that the current draft heads of terms be noted as guidance for those discussions. I think just, I'm not seeking to change the detail. I'm not seeking to change the big number. It's just how some of that might work, particularly in respect of social housing. I'd like us to be sure that we get bang for our buck, if you will, or rather bang for Hallam's buck. So I think this is a good application. It's a very thought through section 106 agreement. I'd just like to finalise a bit more some of those terms, but in such a way as we can abundantly give Hallam the green light to go and do what they need to do and not hold this up anymore. I'm not sure who I saw first. Councillor Jarvis? Thanks.
Surely you offer it to council, please.
Go on then. Go on then.
Flavour of the night.
Yeah.
Yes, Chair, I'm happy to second that. I don't think this really needs to come back again. It's something that we desperately need. And I think the sooner that, they get the full okay to get on with it, the better. Thank you.
Thank you. Unless you want to give way to anybody else, Councillor.
No,
Jarvis, it's your turn.
not this time. Yeah, as Councillor Close said, yeah, it needs supporting. One thing that I'm pleased to see is that the significant amounts put in for education. It's something that, as board members know, I bleat on quite regularly about education. The one thing that I would ask, just if it could be done through Mr. Brown, is with the secondary education, whether there could be some engagement between County Council and the academy, because there is a detachment between the school premises and the academies. It's just to ensure that this £6 million just doesn't go into a pot and stay there. There is a need for it, and whether there could be some attachment that brings the academy in to ensure that this happens. Thank you.
Councillor Jarvis, we can ask many things of the applicant. Miracles is beyond them.
Yeah. Whether there can be, there's got to be some, in my opinion, there's got to be some way of, I'll liken it back to the QE. There was an amount of money that was put there that the academy has never spent. And I wouldn't like to see this money go into a pot somewhere and not reach its destination.
I take your comments entirely to heart, and I understand the motivation. And I think that that is something for this board and our officers to ensure happens. Because if we don't, the whole point is lost. And Hallam will have
not looking to change
a significant amount of money
support
that doesn't actually deliver what it needs
support
to
it, but
deliver.
make sure it goes where it's intended.
So I think we will certainly take those points on board. I'm now lost as to who was next, so we're going to go for,
Because I'm closest.
oh, and you keep waiting.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, thank you, Chair. I have to agree with Councillor Jarvis's concern, and I share that concern. I'm drawn to paragraph 213, where it talks about the fact that the alternative being that the contribution goes towards a new secondary school. This is written into the schedule. Also, the draft includes a clause that the secondary contribution is only used for one of these purposes. Sorry, I should have started a bit earlier. That the improvements to the capacity of Polesworth School, or indeed a new secondary school. Obviously, I'm entirely in tune with your point, Chair. Columns have worked very hard to make this a good proposal, and it is a good proposal, I have no doubt about it. My own concern about this is the scope and the possibility of expanding Polesworth High School. It is huge, and it is, it is a good school, but the scope for expanding it is not there, I don't believe. And I believe that a better solution would be a new secondary school. I know that's a difficult decision in many ways. For one thing, you need 800 pupils for a new secondary school, otherwise you can't offer a satisfactory curriculum, essentially. But within the scope, yes, we need 30% of social housing, and I honestly believe we do need a secondary school as well in this within the scope of this. So yes, I agree with the recommendation, but I would urge people to consider that particular variation, that it should be not an extension to Polesville Secondary School, but a new secondary school.
And I will ask Mr. Brown to give us his guidance on it, but my understanding is we're going to put into the agreement what we've been asked for in a lot more detail, but broadly. And this is what the county council have asked us for. They haven't specified one or the other. I think it's our collective role to encourage the county council as far as we possibly can to do the right thing. In this sense, I think that's a subsequent decision for the county, and it would be invidious to hold up Hallam's development of this site based upon another public authority going off the potty, as it were. But again, I absolutely take your comments to heart because, I think it's an important issue that needs to be resolved appropriately. So I think Councillor Dervix, then Councillor Ridley, then Councillor. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor.
I was, but you've just said exactly what I was about to say.
That was a very succinct comment. Thank you. Councillor Ridley, is that going to be as succinct?
Very succinct, because I'm conscious that your chip shop will be shut. I was having a conversation with Miss Barrett, the esteemed Miss Barrett, in relation to schools, because that was a concern that we've always had. And I think we need 10,000 houses in order to get a new secondary school. Hallam Land aren't delivering 10,000. But yeah, I've got exactly the same concerns. But how great that it's 30%. How great that they actually reduced their numbers. They respected our strategic gap. So we keep our green, and they're also honouring the 30%. And I do agree that that flexibility with everybody, on board of it, it just allows us to hone any issues. So I think that's a good idea. So thank you. Thank you, Hallam Land.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to say something about the same. I was always under the impression you need 7,000 houses to have a new senior school. But the one thing I've always worried about, and I know Dave Parsons and I spoke about it many times, is how big does big get? Because there's 1,600 children at that school at the moment. 1,340 houses is going to give about another 250 children going into that particular school. So we're going to 1,900. So what happens across when we do the stuff behind Dordon, another 2,500, to put another 400 kids into that. And ultimately, by doing it piecemeal and bit by bit, we're not going to get enough houses ever to be able to build this extra school. And the one thing I noticed, and I know Mr. Brown has to work with the numbers he's given, and I'm just thinking about the two schools that it says here, an assumption of a new secondary school, 28.3, put the glasses on, 28.3 million. And if you think of the school that's just been built at Kenilworth, that was 53.3 million over budget, 56.3 million. And the new school that's going in between Leamington and Warrington and Warwick is 48 million. I think they're a bit short on the numbers anyway. And I know those schools are for 2,000 kids, so that actually means they need 10,000 houses. But I don't see we're ever going to get another senior school with the number of houses we're planning in North Warwickshire. But we should all campaign to do that because it's the kids that need the space. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I think under the new rules, the number of applications that can be added together, as there was previously, you couldn't get contributions from I think more than 4, or was it 5? But under the proposals, that disappears. So the totting up continues, I think. Councillor Boone.
I just wanted some clarification on the 30%. So if we agreed to the lower contribution, is there any opportunity for the developer to then come back and lower the 30% anyway?
Mr. Brown.
Well, two or three things, Mr. Chairman. First of all, the heads of terms that you can see, as I emphasised in introduction, the first line of that heads of terms says 30% on-site dwellings across the development. So there'll be 30% across the whole development, and that's written into the agreement. So anything less than that would have to be agreed by this council. So that's on the first point. On the second point, Mr. Chairman, clearly a secondary school may well be more expensive than 28 million, but this is a proportionate response from the county council to the possible financing of the school, bearing in mind that there are other larger proposals coming forward which should provide contributions to the balance in part. So this is proportionate to Harlan's development and doesn't cover the whole cost of that development. Then coming back in terms of the other matters raised, under secondary education, para 9.2, clause 9.2 says the funds to be used for increasing capacity of Polesworth School or towards a new school. So therefore, Councillor Jarvis, it is absolutely specific as to what the sums are going to be used for. There's no wiggle room in that. And it's neither or, but it is for Polesworth secondary education. And then thirdly, I can tell you that there has been engagement with the academy. The county council is undertaking a feasibility study at the present time on expanding the school. That's full up. They've engaged consultants. We're engaged with them in meetings, Mr. Chairman, and the county officers, if county members here want to find out the progress of that, then we can give you the details of the officers concerned. But there is a feasibility study presently going on the expansion of the school. Good to hear that.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I would also say, members, you'll notice in the draft 106 there are other items to be added in, and we can deal with that as part of the amended recommendation. Is there any legal guidance on the amended recommendation? You're happy? Members, do you have any alternative recommendations? I think it's seconded, so if there's no other comments, all those in favour of the recommendation? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Thank you. And as we now move on to application number 134, Cowleys Nursing Home. Mr. Brown, anything to add to your report?
No, Mr. Chairman. I'll just run through the slides so that you can see them some more easily on the screen. The existing Cowleys development consists of blocks that you can see here. The original villa is this one up here in the top. The first extension was the block here in between, and the latest extension is as outlined here, the E-shaped block. The site we're talking about is to the south, as outlined in the red there, and these are the steel buildings or the existing buildings that would be demolished and replaced. Sorry. An aerial photograph there. Basically, you can see that the three blocks here, the existing development here, and the proposal of the expansion in here. You can see the tree cover, which is referred to in the committee report. And then in terms of where we are on the site, this is the existing original house or villa. You can see the first extension, which is here. This again is the original house, and the latest extension is the one at the bottom there. Proposal, as you can see, is to demolish the buildings on this part of the site and erect the building here slightly behind where the buildings are. They're here at the present time. There's a car parking provision at the front. Car parking for visitors would be via the existing access off Astley Lane and round the back of the site. This would be a deliveries entry only. In terms of the proposal, the front elevation is this one here, which would face the lane. Then in terms of a street scene, which won't be visible from the site, from the road, because obviously, as you saw from the previous aerial photograph, there's a substantial amount of landscaping along the front. This is the existing villa. This is the first block, which we referred to. The second block is, in fact, the most recent one is the one behind, which is set back here. And in terms of the new block, it's here. You can see it's set down. The levels enable that to happen. And again here, this is the view from the other side, and this is the side elevation, which is this side elevation, a new block. which is here, and the most recent block is here, as you can see, which is this particular development down in the bottom corner. The report outlines, Mr. Chairman, this is inappropriate development in the green belt because of its scale and size, and that members then have to balance whether there are any other planning considerations which outweigh the harm caused by that inappropriateness. I consider that there are in this particular case. They're all outlined in the report for you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant's considerations are outlined there under section E. And the final planning balance is there outlined in from paragraph 933 onwards. If members run with the recommendation, Mr. Chairman, this is a case which will have to be referred to the Secretary of State under the 2024 direction, as members are aware of. Whilst the direction has been updated, it's been around for some time, and I believe that the most recent block down here was also referred to the Secretary of State under the former direction.
Thank you, members. Councillor Humphrey.
Thank you, Chair. I couldn't comment on, I didn't want to comment last time as my mum was eligible to go into the home. She didn't actually make it there, but since then I have been for a visit as well. And all I will say is, as a resident of North Warwickshire as well, this is so incredibly needed. It's the numbers of space in our area. I'm obviously from Hartshill. My mum ended up in Watervaughton. The amount of palliative care beds that we've got that are available in North Warwickshire with continuing healthcare are so limited that it's almost impossible. So it's so really, really needed. I think the plans are really sympathetic of the area, and I think it's just going to be a real credit to our elderly and dying residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bell, I think, or
Thank you, Chairman. I was so pleased to see this application come forward. I really welcome it. I understand it's in the green belt, and I know that we have to take due care of that too. But this is already a developed site, and it is partially replacing buildings that are already there. It is very well screened, and as Councillor Hobley said, it is already a fantastic facility, much needed in the area. Very specialist dementia care already. And this extension will bring more dementia care which is needed, and most importantly, the first ever palliative care beds that we've ever had in the north of the county. This is so important. We've been fighting for this for years, and this is, I can't tell you how welcome this will be. So, in my view, that way our balance of any harm in the green belt. So, I'm very much recommend. I'm happy to propose a recommendation in the report.
Councillor Cruz.
Thank you, Chair. I think everybody on this board knows that on the greenie, I'll save the tree, I'll save anything. But I think the need for this outweighs that. You know, our beds are clogged up in hospitals because there's nowhere to move them. We had a relative that needed a dementia carer, and nearest one we could get was 70 miles away, you know, from Atherstone. For anybody that doesn't drive, how on earth do they go and visit their relatives or any care homes? You know, my husband works at George Eliot, and he sees it every day. You know, that they're trying to move people out, but there's nowhere to move them, and nowhere that's, you know. And at the end of the day, they need a dignified place to go. So I'm quite happy to second this, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Parsons.
Yeah. To be honest, Chair, I feel I'm approaching the age where I ought to declare an interest on this one. But, you know, anyway,
Would you like us to take a vote?
No, I think I might lose it. But anyway, no, I absolutely have to agree with everything that's been said. I was very, very impressed with the people who came to present this to us, and this is a much needed and excellent development. So, yes. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Rowe?
Just to say that I support everything that's been said so far.
Thank you. Councillor Durley.
Thank you. I agree with everything that's been said so far. I'd like to add that from my recollection of the site visit, I can't remember that there were going to be any trees taken away by this development, and I'm fairly sure that we were assured that there would be a sensitive approach to landscaping when the development is completed. But I think I'm right in saying that whether it is in there as a condition, I think that is going to happen. Usually I can remember what's in the conditions, but I've lost this one, I'm afraid.
I'm pretty sure your recollection is right, but could you confirm, Mr. Brown, no trees to be removed?
That's right, Mr. Chairman. As you saw from the aerial photograph, it's basically an open field.
So, members, it's been, unless anybody else wishes to speak, it's been proposed and seconded for consent. Can I see those in favour of consent? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is works to trees in the conservation area at St Mary's and All Saints Church, Coventry Road, Salonby. Anything to add to your report?
No, Mr. Chairman, it's the recommendations to confirm action already taken for the reasons given in your report.
Recommendation.
Thank you. Any other comments or all those in favour? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. And now we move on to the tree preservation for Hall Farthing Lane in Curzon, Northington. Anything?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to stress that this is Curdworth, not Corley. Apologies for that. Members were aware that this tree preservation order was made a couple of meetings ago because it was considered that the tree was under threat, and a visual inspection was made by the county forester to recommend that a TPO be made. The order was subsequently made, and as a result of that, consultation has taken place as is required. And you can see that we've had an objection and a full arboricultural report supporting that objection. And you've also got the forester's report once he's actually been able to get onto the site and have a good look at the tree. The county forester is saying that in this particular case, the tree is right on the cusp of whether or not a TPO should be confirmed or not. Members will be familiar with the scoring system for trees and whether or not an order is placed on them. And this is right at the bottom end of whether a TPO should be considered or not. The objector's letter scores it differently, in other words, less. So two arboriculturists have looked at it, qualified arboriculturists have looked at it, and even if you take the average of those two scores, it comes to the conclusion that the TPO is probably not warranted in terms of amenity. And then the report also, Mr. Chairman, goes on to say that works can be done to the tree, but that may affect its amenity value in terms of what has to be done. And therefore, very unusually, Mr. Chairman, the recommendation is here that on balance, the order is not confirmed. I can understand if members and the board wish to go differently to that recommendation, because at the end of the day, the board decision is yours, and the decision has to rest on whether this has public amenity value. That's the sole test, if you like, for confirming an order or not. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I'd appreciate a little more guidance, I think, members. If you look at Appendix 2, the final sentence on the second page reads, it should be noted the score could be downgraded in the future in respect of any nuisance claims which could arise, and with any lack of management given the title to the context of its environment. I hear Mr. Brown always telling us we should judge the application in front of us, not what it may be. That sounds like this is what it may be. And I absolutely take the point that the tree has a tree score of 12, which is at the lower end. But could I have some legal advice though, on what the context is here? Because I would take the view to be the council's making a tree preservation order or not, based upon the possibility of nuisance claims in the future. Like this holding on.
Yeah, you've got to take into consideration the future. Once you've made the TPO, that is final. So you've got to take into account on the evidence before you whether potentially you will have nuisance claims in the future, which will be potentially against the council.
But doesn't every tree produce the risk of nuisance claims? And, you know, granting a TPA, I think we are encouraging people to maintain their trees, not
Yes.
do so.
Yes, you are. I agree. But there's always a risk, whether you grant a TPO or not.
If we imposed a TPO and the owner did not maintain the tree, and that then led to a nuisance claim against the authority, would we be able to subrogate those costs against the owner for failure to maintain his tree or her tree?
Potential. It's always a potential. Would we? The owner's got to have permission to chop.
Not if
tree.
it's an emergency. They don't have to.
Okay.
I think entitlements to have, do we? People have to have consent for maintenance.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Any work to a tree requires an application for consent, even just ground lifting or taking out dead wood.
But not in an emergency.
Not an emergency, no. What normally happens in those circumstances is that if we're given sufficient notification, then the county forester would be hopefully visit and advise the landowner.
Councillor, then Councillor.
Just a query really, that if this is scoring 12 at the moment, or even a bit higher, and that is taken into the amenity value of the tree, but to manage the tree properly, part of it, quite large proportion of it, has to be chopped off to manage it properly. That then reduces the amenity value of it immediately. So how does that affect the score and whether it is something that is worthwhile doing?
Councillor Trees?
Chair, can I just ask Mr. Brown? Why did you know it was going to be me? So these photos have been took recently, and the photo of it in full bloom, as I'd still call it, because it's a tree, was taken this year, I take it, early this year. So I know them saying that it's dead and, well, some parts of it is not good, but you wouldn't get a tree flourishing like that if it was dying or if it was on its way out. No way would you. And I know it's had a bit of damage, but if you go further down where they're talking about it, they said that a lot of the damage at the stem of the tree has been caused by cars driving over it.
Over you.
So I couldn't vote tonight against us not having a TPO chair. Sorry.
The county of horticulturists is not saying that the tree is dead, diseased or dangerous. They're saying that when you consider all of the matters that have to be looked at, it comes to a score which is the lowest possible score for the making of an order. And particularly in paragraph 4.3, the reason they're saying that is because proper management, which will have at some stage be undertaken on this tree, will reduce its amenity value, as been said before.
I can just come back. It's normally between 18 and 22, the score, I believe.
It's less than that, Mr. Chairman.
No, I meant the score to get a TPO.
It's 12 to 12 to 15. Yes, it's 12. According to County Forester.
Mr. Brown, I know ordinarily we have a time requirement for confirming or not. So if we don't make a decision tonight, how long is there before this order would fall in any event?
It's in the report, Mr. Chairman, paragraph 2.1, an order would fall on the 10th of October. In other words, in 2 or 3 days' time.
So members, you have a fairly stark choice. You either say you don't want it to that, you wish to confirm the order tonight, or it will go in any event. Councillor Hodley.
Thank you, Chair. While there's neighbours arguing over the tree and tree experts arguing over the tree, I don't think we can make the right decision for the tree. And I'm in agreement with Councillor Clues. A dead tree does not bloom as it's blooming. And with regards to the scale, in everything in life we've got this scale. If it comes under the threshold of a TPO, I believe it should be given a TPO, no matter how low it is on the threshold, it still met that threshold. We've got two tree experts arguing over it, which giving us different outcomes, which makes it even more difficult to come to a sensible agreement. And while that's the case, I think we should protect the tree.
Apologies, gentlemen, I can't remember who I saw first. Councillor Jarvis?
If there's nobody else, yeah. Thanks, Chair. It looks from reading 319 that the tree is currently at risk from vehicles driving over the, it says trots, but I take it that's a spelling, it should be roots. And it indicates that the tree is under immediate threat of felling. Now, if the county guy has said it's within the boundaries of taking or putting a TPO on it, I believe we should follow the county one. Because the other one, it looks, because it's an objector, they've got a slightly different view on it, that they want to score it lower to push it towards removal of this tree. So I would like to propose that we look at getting a TPO put on this tree.
Councillor Humphrey?
Well, won't surprise me, I disagree. I mean, there's a photograph there of the house that's cracking because the roots are under. You've seen the heave that's taking place on the photograph of the patios and the roots that are there. And both arborologists gave it a low rate. One gave it 12 and one gave it 15. Both of those numbers are below a TPO number. I think 22 is the TPO number.
Yeah.
But both numbers are quite low, so they are quite close to each other. And they've got to live with the damage that's taking place to houses and everything else like that. I hope none of us sit here and have to do that. And trees will put leaf when they're in a state. You see oaks that are bits and pieces all the way up to the Grendon B5000. There's oaks that have been falling down slowly but surely. Their boughs are falling off. They flower every year. So I personally can't. I will support the proposal. Thank you.
Councillor Bell?
Thank you. I was actually looking at pages 23, 4 and 25, looking at the patio. I'm thinking that looking for a TPO on this, and I can just see, look at the guidance here on the damage that is done to this patio. And as Councillor Humphries has just alluded to, of the effect on other properties near. It makes me just wonder, yes, we're calling for a TPO, but the damage that it's doing to this lake, this flooding and others, if that's what's happening.
Councillor Mitchell?
Thank you, Chair. I've got a willow exactly like this. It's not right next to a wall, and it does have some rot and some problems with it, but it's going to get pollarded. That was the advice from the arborist. They suck in a massive amount of water, so it's just amazing to think how much water it's sucking and if it does help with flood mitigation. But I would say that it is close. Willows close to buildings aren't great. Really, that is a fact. But a management policy on it would may make it safe, may make it better for the risk towards the house. But willows near buildings, traditionally, insurance companies hate them because of the roots, the invasive roots and whatnot. But management, again, may mitigate that. I'm not an arborist, but I wouldn't want that next to my house. In the middle of the field, it's great. It's a lovely tree. And like the council of trees here, I hate to get rid of a tree, but on this one, I think it's going to be a tough decision. Thank you.
I think it was Councillor Hobley first, and Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry. Just to come back to image 7, on the TPO objection, the cracking in the brickwork picture, that could be from not having a lintel in. There's nowhere to say that that's come from the tree. We can't blame the tree if there's no proof that that's from the tree.
As we have a willow at a village hall, we were put on notice by the neighbours, and ours is a third of the size of it, it's tiny. And this is a willow that hasn't been maintained. And where I work, we had one as big as this. And once they get that size, there's nothing really much you can do with them, like it's been stated. When you start pollarding it, it ceases to be a tree anyway, because it's been allowed to grow so large, it hasn't been maintained. So what we'd be doing with put a TPL on is banking the fact that the neighbours are putting on notice for willow roots under their house. And when we were put on notice by our neighbours, that they had someone come in and they took literally like stuff the width of human hair out and said, there, you guys are on notice. We had to have it pollarded and we maintain it regularly now. But those things are big to my heart. So thinking of put a TPR on that, I think it's not unfair on the neighbours, and two, it's locking the landowner into having an excuse to say that we've done something to prevent it from taking it down. Really leaving ourselves open to a legal challenge potentially.
Any other comments, members? Any guidance you can help us with? Because I think the board is in two minds.
Chair, it's on the evidence before you. So you've got two reports similar in nature. You've got the evidence saying that there might be damage to the property. It's 50-50. There's no evidence that the property is being damaged by the trees. There's a very large tree that is not maintained and that the owner hasn't maintained, and there is potential damage to properties. There's no evidence. It's the evidence is before you. Obviously, Chair, the owner can get emergency works done, provided they contact us on notice and we go and assess. Otherwise, locking, chopping, obviously would give permission on an application.
Thank you.
Nothing further to add, Chair.
Ms Brown, is there a suggestion that without a TPO,
Sorry, Mr. Chairman,
is there a suggestion without a TPO that the owner will remove the tree?
I suspect that they will do, Mr. Chairman, yes.
Councillor Parsons.
Thank you, Chair. I'm no archaeologist, but I spent 5 years working on canals, and throughout that 5 years, we were continuously clearing willow trees that fell over, willow trees that needed attention. I mean, as Councillor Ridley says, willow trees suck up a massive amount of water, they do, but the problem is that they also tend to rot from the inside almost from the moment they start growing. This is a massive tree, it's a beautiful tree, and one has to look at that. But I don't know how you're going to manage the damage. Yeah, my experience would say, actually, this tree doesn't want to,
And look, members, I've got to put the alternative. I see both sides of it at work. Trees that take out a significant amount of water, when they're not there is an equal result. All that water will still be there. So simply removing it doesn't necessarily fix all the problems. You will get other substance and or heat. It cuts both ways. Councillor Sturrock.
Thank you. I haven't got any direct experience of willow trees. But I do understand that one of the problems with them, I have seen it in the past, is that they rot from the inside. And I think we have had experience of willow trees in other parts of the borough where we have granted permission to do work on willow trees because of that danger. There are signs that you can see, and we're told that there is physical evidence that this is rotting from the inside. The experience that I've got more about is birch trees, and really there's very little that you can see from the outside unless you're an expert that those are rotting from the inside. But once those signs are there, and they appear to be on this tree, then it really is important that you deal with it fairly quickly, because they have a tendency to fail under pressure. And with the winds that we're getting now, I think that it's only a matter of time before this is going to fail catastrophically, unless it is reduced in size. And as has already been said, if you reduce it in its size, then it loses its amenity value, some of it, and it may grow back, but it may not. So I think that with its proximity to the house and so on, there isn't proof that it is causing that damage to the window, but it is. And if a bit drops off, then that house is so close to it that it's going to cause damage to the house. It could cause damage to residents that may be passing underneath it as well. So I think we have to be very, very careful about actually extending or confirming this TPO. Normally, as other members will probably agree, normally I'm all for granting TPOs and protecting the trees that we've got. But I think that there is sufficient evidence here to really put that into question in this instance. And I would look at each tree separately with this. I wouldn't follow that example as a general rule, but I think in this case, it is necessary to say, no, this is one that perhaps it can be managed, but I think the indications are that work needs to be done.
So, members, I think we need to come to a vote. So I've had, I can't remember, it's so long ago, the proposal will be going in the recommendation. Do I have an alternative to that, or was we simply going to look at the proposal on inventories? It's the alternative. So look, we've had a recommendation that the TPO is not confirmed. Can I see those in favour of that? And those against? 1, 2, 3, 4. So the TPO is not confirmed. We now move on to agenda item 9, appeal updates. Anything to add, Mr. Brown?
No, Mr. Chairman, I'll take any questions if there are ones.
Does anyone wish to question Mr. Brown? In that case, I propose that the report be noted. Those in favour? Thank you very much. We now move to agenda item 10, and I need to move that in accordance with section 100A4 of the Local Government Act, that members of the public and press be excluded from the remaining business on the grounds that the items to be discussed may involve likely disclosure of exempt information as defined by section 4A of the Act. Would anyone like to take that? Oh. Thank you very much. All those in favour?